creative thinking, because running into walls hurts. Wait, what? Okay, so what does creative thinking mean? Now, a lot of people think creative thinking must be about art or being artsy or writing poetry or something like that. Sure, creative thinking can include that, but what creative thinking really means is it's making connections between seemingly unrelated things. So, for example, the reason why we think of art so often is because, let's use an example of poetry, right? Poetry often uses metaphors where you are connecting something like a cloudy day to my emotions, right? Like in reality, a cloudy day could have nothing to do, right? It's seemingly unrelated to my emotions. But we all know if we use that metaphor, well, not all of us, but it's commonly used that like a cloudy day might mean, sad emotions or something like that. Now, these are seemingly unrelated, but it's making a connection between those two things in a poem, right, helps us to understand and we can see things differently. And connecting those things, it makes them connect and tell us something, right? So creative thinking in general goes beyond art, right? It goes beyond displaying like a picture that makes us think about emotions or something like that. Creative thinking is just being able to connect any different kinds of seemingly unrelated things and making them work together in a way that helps us do something new or better or different, okay? Now, this is pretty hard to understand, right? Like, again, going beyond what I mean, beyond art, when we understand how this works, it's hard to think of creative thinking because we so often just think it's about art. But again, it's being creative in a way that helps us make connections, right? Coming up with new ideas, finding new ways to solve problems. These are all making connections between seemingly unrelated things. Now, why is it important to think creatively? You might recognize this quote. It's from Albert Einstein, but it's because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? What happens to us so often, and why that quote about the walls in the opening, it hurts to run into walls, is because we so often get ourselves stuck in a particular situation or problem, right? And then we try to solve that problem by doing the same thing over and over again. We keep bumping our heads against the wall, bumping our head against the wall, bumping our head against the wall, and nothing gets better because we just keep doing the same thing. This is where habits really hurt us, right? When we have those bad habits, they're so automatic. We keep doing the same thing over and over again and keep getting negative results, but we don't change it. That's being crazy, right? So creative thinking is really important because it helps us get out of those situations. When we find ourselves bumping our head against walls because we keep trying to solve a problem the same way and that solution is not working, creative thinking, making connections between seemingly unlike things, helps us make a connection between, hey, the situation I'm in right now looks like one particular thing, but there's another situation that is similar but different, that if I can connect to that, I can figure out how to solve that other situation, apply it to the situation I'm in, and come up with a solution that actually works and keeps me from bumping my head against the wall over and over again. Creative thinking is ultimately the way we solve the big problems. If you cannot think creatively, if you cannot think of new ways to do things or make connections between things to come up with a slightly new way to handle a situation or to look at a situation differently, you cannot solve the problems you run into, at least not the big problems, right? Creative thinking is absolutely the key to solving problems in a way that helps us move forward and get to somewhere that we want to be, right? This could be in a business where you're trying to come up with ways to, make a profit or to, work more effectively to save money. It could also be, in a lot of different situations, inventing something new, doing scientific research. Anything you can think of, creative thinking is how you solve the big problems and help you move forward. So if you're trying to get better at creative thinking, right, again, it's not about art, right? Art is a part of creative thinking. There are ways you can use art to help yourself grow creatively, but that is not the end point. I really want to emphasize that. Creative thinking is finding ways to do things differently, trying to have more experiences so you can make these connections. So it can start with asking curious questions, right? Go around, look at the things around you and ask questions about it. Learn about that. Learn more about the world around you so you can make connections. Right now I'm sitting in my room recording this, and I am looking at my phone, right? This thing's like a little computer in my pocket. Ask curious questions, right? I could take that for granted and just say, hey, my phone's like a computer in my pocket and move on and not think about it. Or I can ask, how does that work? How did we get to that? What were phones like before? What was it like before we had cell phones? Like, imagine that. Like, there was a time when I didn't have a cell phone. In fact, it wasn't that long ago, right? Like, ask questions to start understanding deeper about these little things that we might take for granted, that can teach us something and help us make connections in the future, right? About anything, about people, about situations, about things. Another step you can do is carefully observe the world around you. What I mean by that is just sit still for a little bit, look around you, like watch the people around you, and see how people act, right? See what people do. How do people connect to each other? How do they interact with each other? How do their behaviors change when they're in a certain type of situation versus another one? Observe, take some time, be quiet, don't talk about yourself. See what other things are going on around you. Look at a room you're in, see all the different things in there. How do they interact? Right? That again will help you build more connections and also just make you generally more observant in the world, which is helpful for solving problems. You'll think about the world differently. And then finally, trying different ways of thinking about and doing things. This is similar and connected to seeking new perspectives, right? But it's trying different ways of thinking about and doing things. So if I do things the same way all the time on purpose to be a little more creative, I'm going to try a different way to do it. Right? Even if that different way doesn't feel good, doesn't comfortable, and maybe doesn't even make for a better way to handle the situation, you need to push yourself every once in a while to do something different, to try different things, think about something different, look at something differently, so that you start that creative thinking process, pushing yourself to make sure that you don't just keep doing the same things endlessly because that's what you're used to or because you built a habit out of it, and then find yourself stuck, right? Again, creative thinking is a way to break free from some of the habits you have, right, that are not so productive, and to push yourself to make sure that you're always doing something a little bit differently and making new connections. Creative thinking is very difficult, right? We don't often teach it, but again, these are the starting place. And again, we will work on this and you'll find yourself having the ability to more creatively think through the process we take you through.